Good morning and welcome to today's webinar on challenges and solutions for disinfectant management in food and beverage applications. Okay, so let's get on with the show. So today's webinar will be given by myself, Hannah Blacknell. I am the application scientist here at Palintest, and I'll be joined by Ian McCulloch, who is our regional sales manager. So first off, I'll take you through a brief introduction to Palintest, and then we'll jump into the importance and use of disinfectants in the food and beverage industry, and then some of the challenges that controlling this disinfectant usage, the people who do so face. And then after that, we will look at effective disinfection is crucially important in the food and beverage industry to ensure product safety and quality, and disinfection control presents a number of challenges which can be addressed by employing advanced disinfection measurement methods. We'll conclude by examining a few case studies in fresh produce washing, beverage bottling, and the meat and poultry applications. So on to the main event and our first question, which is why is disinfection important in the food and beverage industry particularly? So foodborne disease is a global issue. The WHO recently issued this infographic. Almost 1 in 10 people fall ill due to foodborne disease each year, and these diseases cause the loss of 33 million otherwise healthy lives each year. The death rate is especially high in children. A third of the deaths of those 33 million are children. So safe food is an important global issue. The CDC, which is in the US, Center for Disease Control, they estimate that 1 in 6 Americans get sick from contaminated food or beverages each year, and 3,000 die. The US Department of Agriculture estimates that foodborne illnesses cause more than $15.6 billion each year. The CDC and FDA cite 5 highly infective pathogens that can be easily transmitted by food and the workers and cause severe illness. And these 5 are known as the Big 5. And these include norovirus, the hepatitis A virus, Salmonella typhi, Shigella, and E. coli. Lots of different kinds of E. coli go under that. So foodborne illness is a common, costly, and yet preventable public health problem. The CDC track how many cases and how many people are affected by each food outbreak. So the main way to combat food disease is through effective disinfection. That is the effective removal of the risk for human consumption from the food product. This, coupled with good and safe food handling by us, the user, and also in the factory as well, helps to ensure that we stay safe whilst eating. So let's have a little look into disinfectants, the types that are used in the food industry, and also where and how they are used too. There are loads of different parts of the process that requires safe disinfection or sanitization. The food and beverage sector is wide and varied, but for the purposes of this webinar, we're just going to be dealing with 2 umbrella sectors within the application. That's food processing and the beverage and dairy industry. So from the field to the packaging of the product, it's key to ensure that there is sufficient disinfection in place to prevent the transfer and growth of harmful microorganisms. For a product such as salad or carrots, this process can start in the irrigation water. Cleaner irrigation water will ensure cleaner and usually healthier product being grown. Throughout the process, it's vital to keep all surfaces and tools free from harmful bacteria, as this is one of the easier points of transfer to product and also one of the easier points of cross-contamination as well. Depending on the product and the plant, you may have a number of different storage and cleaning lines for your product. These could be chillers or dips, bottling and filling lines, sprays or flumes. Everything used in this process needs to be kept sanitized. A key issue is that it only takes one viable microorganism to grow and form a colony, which could lead to significant danger to the consumer. So what I'd like to do first is a little roundup of some of the common disinfectants used in our experience in the food and beverage industry across the globe. Different countries have varying laws and regulations that result in 1 or 2 of the disinfectants being king in each area generally. So there are some chemical ones like chlorine and chlorine dioxide and bromine. And there are also some that are often referred to as organics, that's peracetic acid or PAA and hydrogen peroxide. And you also have ozone, which is often used as a secondary disinfection method in other applications, like in your spa, for example. There isn't an image up there because I couldn't think of something that represented it well, but UV light is another one that is often used in some countries as a disinfectant. So that's what they are, but how do they work? So now most of these disinfectants that I've put up here are known as oxidizing disinfectants, things like chlorine, for example. The term oxidizing actually refers to how the disinfectant works rather than what it is. And what it means is that these will oxidize the cell membrane of microorganisms. And the cell membrane is what's holding the shape, that circle sort of tablet shape that you can see on that picture on the screen. The membrane is a sac that holds all the useful bits that the bacteria needs to survive and multiply together and gives it a structure similar to what we can see there. So this is an artist's impression of a microscope image. I say impression because anyone who's used a microscope knows that for the most part, all you're going to get is a grainy image that either looks really blurry or a bit like nothing, or is the exact opposite of what you thought you were going to see. So once the disinfectant has disrupted this membrane and created a hole or a gap in it, then the bacteria will die as all of its essential parts, its organelles, have spilled out. And therefore, it no longer poses a threat to the human. So the disinfectant doesn't really remove the bacteria, although that's what we say. It just kills it or renders it inactive, so it no longer poses a risk to us. So just having a look at some of the different parts of each of our two umbrellas. So food processing, some of the different things that could go in there is ready to eat foods like your ready meals and anything that you just bung in the oven. You've got your fresh produce, so fruits and vegetables mostly, but also a few other bits and pieces that go into there as well. Things that you generally will eat raw, not always, but often will eat raw, are the ones that are going to cause the most problems. Cooking kills bacteria anyway, so often you want to make sure that everything that you are going to eat without cooking is as clean as possible. And meat, poultry and seafood are really important when it comes to disinfectant because they carry some of the worst to have. I've had food poisoning from a meat product and it was horrendous. So those are the ones that I'm most wary of because I've already been there. And then in the beverage and dairy industry, there's a few different things. There's dairy alternatives and proper dairy, cow and well, animal dairy, cows, goats, sheep. And then you've got soft drinks, waters and juices, which are usually bottled. And then brewing and fermentation, where there's a reaction that's happening generally in a bottle or in a cask. And you still need to keep an eye on the bacteria, especially when you're fermenting something. Okay, so the most commonly used disinfectants from our experience in the food processing and beverage industry are chlorine, chlorine dioxide, PAA, and bromine. Now, bromine is not generally used as a direct disinfectant in the food and beverage industry. However, it is used a lot in the sanitizing of recirculating water and in the cooling towers and boilers of plants as well. Mostly this is because bromine is much more active at higher temperatures than chlorine, which is the same reason why it's often preferred for use in spas. So these are the key areas, the food and processing and beverage and dairy, that Ian's going to explore a little more in a minute.